Hi, this is Shannon Leitz. I'm super excited to be here with the RSA conference for 2021. My talk is called The State of the Union of DevSecOps, and I have been a prior speaker with RSA. I started in the industry quite a bit ago. I've been giving talks on DevSecOps for some time. My interests are all very centered around technology, and I have a couple of little girls who like to do ballet. I'm really keen on helping the industry to transform to deal with some of the things in security that are needed, such as metrics and having more women in tech. It's just a little bit about me. I work currently at Intuit, and I have prior worked at ServiceNow and Sony and many other companies as well. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the state of the union of DevSecOps, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you will. And feel free to drop a line into chat. I'm going to be taking all of the information in. If you have questions, feel free to put those into the chat. As I ask questions, feel free to answer in the chat. And here we go. So when you start to think about the journey that we've all been on for security and technology and DevSecOps, and this is a slide to help us get oriented, it's been a long journey, decades, if you will. Software quality started the journey for what I believe is the security transformation that's been going on. And in 1976, there was a paper written that helped to frame up the ilities. It's a great paper. And if you're interested in it, chat me and I'll send you the link. This is a big monumental cornerstone of how we've gotten to the point in security where we are today. If you look along the way, the software quality ilities, essentially security was baked into software quality, but not at a primary level, actually one level deep into integrity in that paper. Along the way, you can see that we saw firewalls and vulnerability scanners. Actually, there's a whole bunch of work that was done on intrusion detection systems along the way. And that started to create the advancements. And in 1992, there was some work done around vulnerability scanners and firewalls. I think it's really critical to understand that as part of this effort, you can see, as an example, OWASP started to come in 2001 with applications and application security. It was basically right around then that we saw that the internet was really becoming more prevalent. We saw more investment in software, and software security was starting to become more of a big issue. Site reliability, Google got started on that journey, and they've been on that quest ever since. And you can see a variety of different dimensions to this. In 2012, I was working with a bunch of different folks, and we realized that DevOps was something that was really here to stay, and that the cloud was here to stay, and that software was never going to be the same again because there were really software-defined infrastructure and capabilities. And so that transitioned us into things like trying to figure out how to make security built in. DevSecOps got started around then, and we've been on that quest ever since. And now we're in 2021. It's not yet a 10-year journey, but we're slowly creeping up on it in 2022. And it'll be interesting to see how that transforms us over the next couple of years. And to be able to talk about it, I think the question that I get is, okay, great. So we're in DevSecOps, and there's a lot of companies that are doing it, maybe not doing it. Is it a marketing term? So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the success, the failures, the epic battles, what's next, what is happening in the industry. And I've got some data points for you to help you to understand how to determine where you are in the journey, as well as understand what else is happening around you to be able to take that into perspective. So the successes, everybody always wants to know the successes, right? I think one of the biggest things that has come up with the successes is that, truly DevSecOps has led to alignment, better alignment of security to the business, to development, to being able to articulate what is happening from a security endeavor and really trying to figure those things out. Then, when you think about alignment, this picture started kind of my quest and my journey. Was DevOps was helping to frame up how you got to build software, and then how it eventually became something, and how you actually made this become a customer capability. And along the way, you kind of went through the prototyping phase, and you checked your code into software versioning systems. And so, you can see how GitHub and GitLab and some of those companies have come to life, Perforce. And so, there's that continuous integration, the test suites. All of these things became part of that pipeline. It's known as the continuous delivery pipeline. And then along the way, when we were thinking about DevSecOps, well, what did it take to really look at software and essentially build security in? I've seen things like the secure software development lifecycle. Those things are definitely part of what helped to influence some of this picture. And in aligning what we were doing with the business, it was basically, how do we actually help the business to understand when they're building trust back into the software and how they're doing it from a shift left perspective. And this led some of the shift left thinking. So, in every great story are the stars of that story. The way I think about this journey is really about trying to figure out who the stars of a story are and articulating the story around them. And when you start thinking about successes, the secure software supply chain is really about customers' software enablement and employees. Essentially, these are the basic elements. There's a whole bunch of complexity that's underneath these, but at a top level, if you were to, take the software supply chain, really divide it into these 4 categories, and essentially think about how we're doing as an industry. We've got much more security in our software supply chains. It's not ideal yet, but there are successes and wins that have happened. As an example, being able to build security checks and capabilities such as scans and SAST and DAST into the pipeline to check software before it becomes a production capability has been something that's really been a monumental effort, and actually something that's helped us to be able to look at these successes in that way. Employees are becoming more aware. There's a lot more focus on enablement. The cloud is an enabler. And when I started with this journey in 2012, if you looked around at that time, there wasn't a lot of security capabilities in the cloud at that point. And today, that's not true. Most of the clouds out there that we take advantage of, the cloud providers, their capabilities have a lot of security features and capabilities that are available for anyone to be able to create a single line of code and add a key to a specific type of encryption. Or you might want to have monitoring. Those are something that you can turn on. And in many cases, the cloud providers are now doing these things by default. And it's really exciting to see. So along that thought process, I found a bunch of different inputs for us to talk about. One of the ones to think about that was really exciting was to see that Forrester has been studying the application security testing market. What's really neat is to see that SAST, something that security professionals have been well aware of, have been learning about, have taken on in terms of complexity, that it's starting to make a transition and be transformed such that SaaS tools are now starting to be more focused on the developer as a customer, and really making it so that that tool chain is easier to use, that there's actually an ability for the findings to be ticketed, that work management as part of the development process is really thought about with those tool chains. And I think that's a critical element. Another critical success we've been able to achieve, if you look at the success that's going on along the way for DevSecOps, it's top level support. A great piece of information that I found was from Gartner. They said that we're basically seeing that DevSecOps is got 20 to 50% of its target audience that's already been attracted and working on the DevSecOps transformation in their organization. And in their hype cycle, you can see that DevSecOps is pretty far along and in a maturing phase of its journey. And that's really keen to see. I think that that helped us to really see that not only are we making this transformation as practitioners, but that you're seeing buying behaviors and you're seeing attention in this space to bringing software the security it deserves to have. And that's important. Another thing that was said by Gartner was that DevSecOps is in early mainstream. That is really neat to see after 8-ish years. I would say, when you start to see something going mainstream, you see that people are talking about it continuously, that you're having the debates and the banter that goes along with it. Those are also crucial milestones in knowing that what we're doing is making software safer. As part of early mainstream, we're seeing more and more software being published with the vulnerabilities being lessened, and that companies are doing things like blocking their builds when a security issue comes to life, so that the number of defects are actually reducing quite a bit. And so I did a little bit of a study to go figure out, well, where are we with the journey from the vantage point of tooling and capabilities? And I have a bunch of other slides in former presentations where I talk about some of the products that actually line this space. And I did a little bit of investigation, some mathematics in the background, because I'm a big geek and like to, do the mathematics of figuring out where things are. And in assessing these different places, you can see that DevSecOps is having a profound effect in getting security into the right places of the pipeline, that there are more and more products that are getting matured, that they're starting to make strides. The green boxes here are really the ones that are the most heavily focused on in terms of products, that they're being adopted readily, that you see practitioners that are talking about the concepts in these areas. The yellow boxes are not quite there yet. You are seeing things being invented. You're seeing open source start to show up, but they have a little bit of ways to go. And that is a pretty healthy place to be when you have about 2 to 5 years left before plateau in a space. I don't know if I fully agree with DevSecOps being ready to plateau necessarily, but because I think there's still so much innovation to make this space more graceful, more elegant, that the products are, while they're wonderful and complex, that they could be more easily accessible, and that along this pipeline, you could get to the point where some of these start to converge and you could see consolidation across some of these dimensions. As an example, seeing that code analysis is starting to make its way into software version control with things like GitHub and GitLab and some of the places where you might check code into a version control system is a really neat thing to see, because the products in code analysis do help us to make sure that software that we build, not just the stuff that we integrate, but the stuff that we actually build as practitioners, is being thought about at the time that it's being checked in and a pull request is being made. It's also neat to see, big products out there that are becoming unicorns in this space, such as Snyk and some of the other things like CodeDX. You have a lot of different dimensions to this problem. And I think it's really neat to see that there's a whole bunch of practitioners and vendors that are trying to make this space even better. So another piece of the puzzle here is DevSecOps product categories are starting to really show up. And I thought this was pretty neat, because basically transformational, Gartner saying that this is a transformational effort, that you should be investing in DevSecOps, that it will really truly bring benefit and value to your company in extraordinary ways. We've always believed it in the work that I've done with peers in the industry. And to see it being stated at this point in the 2020 report was really exceptional. I think that's a big success and win for the people who have started to adopt it, that have been really pushing on what is DevSecOps, how do we actually make software better, how do we really fully understand our supply chains and get to the next level. The next one here is, I pulled this, was really great. I found something that helped us to understand what the CAGR is for DevSecOps as a marketplace. And whenever you see whether something is really successful or not, you see a buying behavior that's looking for new products, that's looking for ease of use, that's trying to really morph the space in terms of the feedback and the feature use and development. And this is an exceptional growth rate for 2021 to 2028 for DevSecOps and in the DevOps market. To see that security is really being embraced, that we're getting more traction, it's, I would say as a security practitioner, it's sort of a dream come true to see that more and more folks are starting to understand that they need to have their products not just be customer worthy, but security resilient as well. So the other thing to note, and this is a really great thing, is anytime you're doing something that you believe in and you see academic interest, you've kind of arrived, right? Academia showing up and being able to look at great literature to see if they should invest their time. Their conclusion was that that there's increasing attention in this space, that there is an ability to do more innovation. And their assessment, which was a little different than the marketing assessment, and I always kind of like to compare the two, is that DevSecOps is in its infancy. Now, while they're looking at literature, they're looking at quite a bit of the information that's out there. I thought this was a really good study. If you want to know about it, just ask me for the link. I'll put it in the chat. You can go and take a look at this. I thought it was pretty incredible work. And I found other articles in academia as well that are starting to study this space to help us to understand where we could see more traction, that there is opportunities to reduce false positives in some of the products, to make them more developer friendly, accessible, that there is an opportunity to bring more adversary knowledge to the forefront and have developers be able to determine what their traction is going to be against adversaries on the end, and have that ideal state of being adversary resilient. Another thing to think about too is workforce investment. Where are we really seeing successes? And this is a lot of jobs, by the way. 6,400 jobs just in the last little bit, and 8,400 jobs posted on LinkedIn. If you think about these things, just getting workforce growth in a space and starting to see the jobs show up means that companies are really investing, that they know that this is important, that they're actually making that commitment by opening up the workforce to being able to do this work and to spend effort on making sure that it's part of their business. That's another counted success. Another one to note too is just how much money people are making in DevSecOps and their salaries. Looking for the understanding of what the average salary is from talent was a really cool thing to see, because now all of a sudden you can see that there is an investment, that it's a prized position, that there is more and more effort being made to secure software, that we're seeing that the supply chain itself is getting this investment. And while academia believes it's in its infancy, that does mean too that there's career growth in this area of expertise. You're seeing things like DevSecOps architects, you're seeing stuff like DevSecOps engineers, you're seeing a promotion path associated with DevSecOps and career growth overall. Now, let's talk about the failures. Everybody always wants to talk about the failures and the epic battles, right? So successes are nice to see, because that's actually what helps us to know that we're going in the right direction. But failures can be quite a bit interesting too. And one of the things to think about is with upskilling as an example and career growth. I just talked about the benefits and the successes associated with DevSecOps from a career perspective. But what we're also seeing, which is the other side of the coin when it comes to DevSecOps, is that while there's a lot of jobs open, upskilling and career growth right now are also a challenge in this space. So going back to these, 6,400 jobs and 8,400 jobs, how fast are they being filled? Is there demand in this space? And actually what you're finding, if you study it a lot, like me, is that you find that there is a need for more DevSecOps skills, that we're seeing more DevOps come forward, and they have compliance skills, but they don't necessarily have the monitoring skills yet or the testing skills yet. And we have to, as an industry, start to focus on those as a primary reason why we'll have better software security. If we start to invest in those areas, we'll have upskilled folks. They can actually do more. They can automate more. They're going to be able to build security in. And we as an industry have to find a way to really create that organically with the help of vendors, with the help of academia, with the help of making sure that there's a way for us to distill a career path and a role that allows people to determine the skills and the craft skills that they need. Another thing to think about that's not been a true failure, but maybe one that actually has been holding things back is, and I found this, it was a GitLab study, 13% of companies are giving developers access to the results of their dynamic application security tests. Only 13% was concerning from my perspective. Access is a big thing. Sharing is really critical. And as security practitioners, I know that I grew up in this industry being told that we needed to keep the understanding of security close to our chest, and we needed to make sure that only a few people knew about it. And that may just not have been the way forward. We need to make sure that developers own their security decisions, that they're making product choices, and they're picking up things that are actually going to make their software resilient enough based on the adversary profile of their software. And so I think that you have to liberate information about defects and bugs from a security perspective. It'd be interesting to hear what you think. So in the chat, why don't you tell me what you think? I think it's a place where we should liberate the information for our developers so that they can understand how to fix things and how to prioritize and to really build that up. But everybody is entitled to their decisions around this. It is something that I think will help the industry for us to all provide more and more of this information and even make the tools accessible enough that they can be self-service. Another area that's been a failure so far has been false positives. I hear it every place I go, every time I talk about DevSecOps, every discussion, there's something about false positives. I also think that false negatives are a thing as well, but false positives is really plaguing the DevSecOps space. And in particular, if you look at it, the code review tools that are out there are just really overwhelming in terms of false positives. Now, false positive from the standpoint of a developer or a business person bringing something in is very different than a false positive understanding by a security practitioner. We'll talk a little bit about that in Epic Battles because there's sort of a language barrier. But I think it's really important to understand that DevSecOps is truly being held back by this. And this may be something that we need to figure out how to solve through things like orchestration, and there needs to be a little bit more investment in trying to understand what DevSecOps orchestration could do to help alleviate some of the stress and pain. Now, somebody's false positive it's a debate back and forth. And I also think that the other reason why false positives exist is that there's really a lack of understanding about what the true resiliency problem is, or that the adversary opportunity is not fully understood or appreciated. So there's still a little bit of debate about whether it's really a false positive or it's just being misunderstood. And I think there's got to be some more clarity in that space as well. Audits, if you've been doing DevSecOps for even a little bit of time, I've been doing it now for a long period of time, audits are definitely a critical issue and cause quite a bit of consternation. It seems to be that most of the standards and regulations out there are written truly for somebody to be able to do an audit at the end of a life cycle. And in this case, it really does become detrimental, because if you're trying to build security into the pipeline and you're actually being asked to do things that are manual, or that you're having to spot check and you're having to work in that runtime behavior to prove out the security of your software or your supply chain, what you're going to find is that actually will also pull you back, that people will actually chase what they're being asked to be audited against, as opposed to some of the new forward leaning activities. And so from a Dear Auditor perspective, this was something that came up. I haven't seen it get much traction just yet. I really have been pushing on it. And you'll notice here, it's only got 24 stars, but if I could, ask anybody to put investment into a place that's really going to have returns, it is in this space that we need to solve, that truly we've got to advance our audit criteria around the cloud, around DevSecOps, around what we expect in terms of control behaviors. and really make it become more of a resilience mechanism so that we understand that we're making risk decisions that are based on true adversary behavior, that we are taking risks based on what we understand of the adversary risks we're taking. And I can't say it enough, this is a true thing that we actually have to disrupt to be able to make a stride forward to get to the point where it could become, or DevSecOps could become more mainstream from my perspective. Now, on to the epic battles. All right, so everybody always likes to hear about epic battles. It's probably my favorite place to talk about too. We talk a lot about culture in DevOps and in DevSecOps, and culture in primary is always an area where everyone talks about, it is all about the culture that actually creates these opportunities for us to do things like DevSecOps. And I'll tell you, the epic battles, one of the great books that you could go read about, and if you don't have the link, send me a chat and I will give you a link to this. But Epic Failures in DevSecOps was written a while back, and there are some great stories in there. And there's some really, truly interesting data points for folks that are trying to go through this journey. Where are the frameworks? Where are we investing in terms of making it easier and more accessible? Do we want to solve that for the industry? Is it something that's going to be, is your DevSecOps program going to be a one size fits all? Is there a place to do it right or wrong? Or do you just need to use the tools and the capabilities and really form your own? Language is another critical area. And, an epic battle here is whenever you see people talking about something, you see them have an understanding of words from their perspective, but maybe not the full community's perspective. And language is an issue. I had this pop up in the last couple of days, and I thought it was really relevant because, the question was, if security is everyone's responsibility, then why does DevSecOps exist? And I think it's really crucial to understand that everyone's responsibility is security. When you build something and you have to make sure that what you did is secure enough, that you understand the adversary opportunities and you rationalize that, it doesn't mean that any one particular role is going to take over security of the company or the security of a product line that has many, many people in it. It means that as practitioners, we each have to rationalize the security decisions we make, that we're understanding how to make those security decisions, and that we're part of this team that helps to make software resilient. I think that we have to spend more effort on not trying to have language get in the way of these things, but to help enable us. And, another area really is, I saw this in the GitLab report as well, and this was kind of interesting. They had a whole bunch of data points about who thinks they own security. And the truth is that in this space, it's really owned by everyone. Security, the word, has many facets to it. Operations folks are making sure that in the stack that the products are actually getting operational security elements, that there are things that are happening in decisions being made by developers like, hey, which encryption should I be using? Security practitioners should be offering up solutions and things that could be used that are going to make the products more resilient. And so they may be building some of the security capabilities. And then testers, I love seeing when testers believe that they're doing the security job of the company, because truly they're making sure that customers are getting the best products. But it also means that security is starting to make its way into quality decisions in a way that it hasn't been in the past. And that's really, I think, while an epic battle, a serious opportunity to have another win. So target state's also something that I think has really been misunderstood, and it's still something that we're all battling about. What do we mean by a target state? I see that everybody's kind of counting DevSecOps as success, and I don't want to disrupt that, but I think it's really crucial to understand that the software supply chain is so much more than the continuous delivery pipeline, and we might be being a little bit myopic. This is a data point for everyone, is to look at things like this, where you're actually looking at supply chain attacks. And this was mapped out. Again, I'll provide the link if you're looking for this paper. When you look back at all the materials that are out there, MITRE's been doing a lot of this information work for quite some time to help people to assess and build decision frameworks around this. And I think it's critical importance that you can see in that bottom right-hand corner that primary production software, that is the continuous delivery pipeline, but you can see that there's attack opportunity across the supply chain in so much more than just that one box. And we have to take that into consideration. So the battle for target state of DevSecOps is something that I believe that is the reasoning and rationale behind why academia thinks that it's still in its infancy, but that the marketing folks are still thinking that it's going to be something that's going to be plateauing soon. So I think there's just a little bit of a disconnect there and a mismatch that we have to solve for. Adversaries are still an epic battle. When you start to look at what's happening and what are the top hacking vectors and where are things happening, web applications are really high on the list right now in terms of where attention is being paid. You also see things like, desktop sharing software. And I will tell you, in studying this is one perspective, and it was primarily a perspective given by companies that are, really studying this space. If you study other parts of the supply chain, you'll find that they have the same elements, but maybe in the reverse. Like, actually, if you look into anti-malware and some of those spaces, you see that they're actually showing a different perspective of this data in a different dimension. And it means really what we're seeing is adversaries are leveraging some of the things that are great about what we like, which is the advancements of clouds. They're using it in a very adversarial way, and we have to get that to be a forefront for us. Perfectionism is another one. I'd say, I'm sure you're aware of it, spending a lot of time on trying to make sure you get every single thing done and that software is perfect before it comes out can really hold back the DevSecOps maturity phase. I think we really have to solve for adversary resilience, and we have to get to the point where perfectionism in certain places is really crucial versus that everything has to be done. This notion that we're going to have a checklist approach to DevSecOps, I'm not quite sure I'm there yet, and I could be talked into a lot of things with a lot of data. But for me, this is a great reference design and diagram for folks that are trying to envision a new set of capabilities that are going to help us to make software more resilient. But I still think it has to get put back onto that supply chain and not just around the continuous delivery pipeline for us to get better at it. Measurement's another one where we're all battling for it. Really, who is doing security metrics? And sadly, I did this, check to find out how much we have to go for this. And I'd say DevSecOps metrics are really, really at their forefront in the infancy stage. I'm hoping to, start to provoke more conversation around this. I want to start to create an exchange on metrics and try to help the industry to make sure that we're talking about things like securability and adversary resilience. It's been a quest for me for some time. I've always been very metrics driven. It's one of the things in my background that you'll find that I'm a big believer that if you want to do something well, you've got to figure out how to measure it. And I think this is an area where we really have to battle it out and get to the point where we're in agreement on metrics that are really going to move the needle for software security. So what's next? What's the last bit of this, stage and puzzle? I think that adversary management, which is something that I'm now doing for my organization, is a next generation of things like Red Team and DevSecOps, and really having that conversation about how do you balance customers and adversaries in terms of business decisions and where you're going to spend your investment in terms of the controls and things that you're going to deal with. And that in particular is a sweet spot right now that I see becoming a new conversation. If you look around, folks are now starting to talk more about adversaries and monitoring and things like that. Security OKRs and metrics, big on my list. If you haven't read it, read Measure What Matters by John Doerr, fabulous book. There's a lot of stuff out there about OKRs. Developers are really embracing OKRs. You see that Google spent a lot of effort on OKRs, and I think metrics are really part of what was going to break that glass ceiling in terms of making DevSecOps a forefront and something that's really going to change and transform us for the long term in terms of the industry itself. And then fewer, better suppliers. I keep saying it over the years. I think this is another guiding light that we've got to be focused on moving forward towards. Security observability. If you haven't spent any time in the observability space, there's a whole bunch of new work that's going on there. And I think that's a critical element. The secure software supply chain, it's not enough to say it's a software supply chain. I really think we do have to add that word to it that says it's a secure software supply chain so that we put the emphasis there. We are seeing really big attacks in the industry that are starting to focus primarily in this space because it's not mapped out well. We're focused too heavily on the continuous delivery pipeline, and we've got a perspective that's too myopic, I believe, and we've got to back up and really look at the whole dimensions of a business to understand what could get in and where do we want to spend and invest to make something more secure. Folks are spending and investing in this area, and I'm seeing things that may actually need to be put in place for enablement technologies like laptops. How safe are the laptops when you're bringing new libraries onto those machines as development machines and you're connecting into these environments? We really do have to find more effort in the industry to make innovations in this space. So if you want to go and start to do work around making strides and understanding how to bring DevSecOps into your company, the next thing you should do is really figure out how to drive DevSecOps outcomes, figure out what you need to achieve, and create a common set of definitions. I think it's critical for that to happen. Within the next 3 months, I think that once you've kind of embraced whether or not you're doing DevSecOps, what you could be doing about it, whether some of these battles are also happening in your organizations, what you also could be highlighting. Now, you might want to get involved in things like finding out what your critical objectives are, identifying the metrics, getting some OKRs, defining security resilience, understanding the adversary dwell time and baseline for 30 days on your applications and your software, really articulating that as an understanding of what you need to do and whether the investments you're making in security are really bringing that number down or not. And that will be, I think, instrumental in what you do for the next 6 months to several years, is that your DevSecOps tools have to actually be more accessible, that it has to become more graceful. Orchestration is going to become a big deal when it comes to DevSecOps. We can't just have all these point solutions. It's too hard to bring all that information together. We've got to solve for a view of the software supply chain that makes it so we can make DevSecOps a forefront, and that software security is really the ultimate challenge and goal that we're all taking on. So I'm really excited about this topic. Want to definitely have more conversations in the chat. Feel free to ping me. I'm going to sit here and have some more conversations live. And if you want to start getting more involved with metrics, please ping me privately. I'm on Twitter at DevSecOps. You can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'm always looking for folks to collaborate with in the industry and help to change and transform the industry. So thank you for your time today, and really excited about seeing what's left on the agenda for RSA this week.